kita tuh butuh lebih banyak orang optimis di negara ini, Pak. Benar. We need to change the mindsets of people, kayak gitu. Bahwa it's possible, it is possible, kayak gitu. Itu yang paling penting, karena kalau udah patah semangat duluan di depan, siapapun yang mau nge-convince dengan uang berapapun atau dengan resource segimanapun, so like they will still like running on the place, right?
Inilah Endgame. Halo teman-teman, saya seringkali ditanya di sosmed. Saya ingin ikut berkontribusi untuk Indonesia yang lebih keren di 2045. Baiknya mulai dari mana? Mungkin salah satu saran saya yaitu belajar public policy.
Nah, itulah pentingnya public policy.
To change is definitely also policies, right?
Dan untuk mendeliver itu, tadi butuh teknologi, butuh uang, dan butuh policy.
Nah, pemahaman terhadap analisis kebijakan itu memungkinkan kita untuk mengaktualisasikan solusi untuk berbagai permasalahan, apalagi yang sifatnya struktural. Tidak hanya di pemerintahan, tapi juga di dunia usaha maupun non-profit. Mantan Sekjen PBB Ban Ki-moon, Perdana Menteri Singapura Lee Hsien Loong, dan jurnalis Rachel Maddow, semuanya adalah lulusan jurusan Public Policy. SKPP Indonesia, sekolah public policy pertama di Indonesia dengan bahasa pengantar bahasa Inggris, sedang membuka penerimaan mahasiswa untuk batch terbaru. Untuk detail mengenai program dan cara mendaftar, atau sekedar berkonsultasi mengenai rencana karir teman-teman ke depan, hubungi SKPP Indonesia melalui link yang ada di deskripsi. Now back to the show. Halo teman-teman, hari ini kita kedatangan Ahmad Al-Katiri, founder dari Hardfast. Mat, makasih bisa datang.
Aduh, it's really my honor. I think ini kalau nyokap nonton, nyokap bangga banget.
Jangan nyokap aja,
Iya.
tapi kalau bisa 280 juta.
Amin.
Manusia. Cerita deh, dari kecil lahir di Ambon, tahun 89, 26 April ya, Taurus.
Taurus.
Percaya dengan horoskop?
Maybe 10 years ago.
Oke, silakan. Terus?
Thank you Pak Gita. I think kalau disuruh cerita my life story, I think the disclaimer upfront itu tuh adalah is a lot of dramas ya. My life is like is a roller coasters. Jadi tadi mungkin udah disebut bahwa saya asli Ambon. I'm very proud of being putra asli Maluku, dan I was born there, raised there sampai dengan SMA, baru kayak kemudian keluar. Dan I think the part of drama itu tuh started when dulu kan tahun 99 Ambon punya banyak sekali kerusuhan. Oh, mungkin one step back is I was born di keluarga yang biasa-biasa aja lah. Jadi I think my mom sama dad they're not even finish their high school actually.
Yeah.
Mereka
Keturunan Arab ya?
Keturunan Arab,
Siap.
correct. Mereka nggak lulus SMA. My dad was a contractors, jadi dia bikin perusahaan sendiri dan segala macam. My mom is stay at home. Terus I think the drama started when of course tahun 99 itu tuh kerusuhan di Maluku, dan it was quite big conflict kayak gitu. Dan I think itu tuh di mana kehidupan tuh mulai berubah secara signifikan kayak gitu. Ini we're talking about benar-benar zaman-zaman itu ketika ditanya apa sih cita-cita kamu, Mat, the answer that we usually give adalah to actually live another day kayak gitu. Karena it was super scary, right? We live in the constant fear. Kita on the I don't know how do you familiar with the conflict Ambon atau Maluku pada waktu itu ya. Cuman
Kita sempat bikin film mengenai itu dulu.
exactly right. Itu kayak memang benar-benar we're talking about parang-parangan, senjata api, dan dikejar-kejar sampai rumah dibakar. You actually live in the refugee camp, dan you lose your home, you need to actually leave your home. Dan di momen-momen dimana kayak memang sampai ada dulu itu tuh ada zaman-zaman dimana yang kayak bikin very traumatis. Kalau daerah kamu diserang kayak gitu, itu kan tiang listrik dibunyiin ya. Itu benar-benar pada saat di Cahaya Timur itu kan
Cahaya Timur tuh kita
di ya. And then itu tuh berarti bahwa the enemy is actually very near already, right? Dan itu adalah di mana kalian udah harus very very like khawatir, worry, takut kayak gitu. Dan biasanya the next step things to do adalah benar-benar lari nyari masjid atau gereja paling dekat untuk kayak berkumpul di situ, right? And the worst case scenario is that kalau ternyata like the enemy lines breach, then it's is the end game, right? Is done kayak gitu. I think like itu yang bikin the kerusuhan berdarah di Ambon itu tuh it was really amazing experience. I mean, if you ask me kayak mau diulangi lagi, of course enggak. Cuman I feels like it's really a great experience for me untuk kayak memang shaping the mentalities. Karena akhirnya mentality yang kebentuk adalah mentality yang memang as a fighters mentalities, right? Karena we literally need to actually like be fight for our life kayak gitu, right? Dan nggak cuman itu kan, itu tuh juga nge-affecting the quality of life, the educations, Pada saat saya SMP dan SMA, ketika we went to the school kayak gitu, we never know whether we can come home atau enggak kayak gitu. Karena ada momen-momen di mana kayak tiba-tiba di school dan like bunyi tiang listrik tadi berbunyi dan you need to like rushing home and then like suara bom di sana, suara peluru di sini dan segala macam, and you would never know whether that you will actually reaching your home atau enggak kayak gitu. The quality of education was also really crazy back in when my time di Ambon, karena I think back in the days kurikulum yang dipelajarin sama mereka yang di Jakarta, we were like 1 year late, right? Jadi 1 tahun kemudian kita belajar hal itu, dan we're talking about like one classroom yang memang satu meja yang harusnya isi 2, kita isi berempat berlima. So the quality of education is also like was also a very agak terbelakang lah kayak gitu. But again, the way that I say it is, even despite at that time semua orang, termasuk your inner circle, family, they were saying that, Matt, like this will be your life kayak gitu. Udah nggak usah cita-cita yang tinggi-tinggi, nggak usah cita-cita keluar kuliah di luar atau apa. This would be it, because like that's the mindset of it at that time, right? Kayak gitu. Cuman I feel like itu justru yang kayak menjadi motivasi to actually prove that even we're in that the bottom of life situations kayak itu, you still like have a chance untuk kayak at least do better atau like have a better life kayak gitu. Akhirnya udah kerusuhan segala macam, and then like we need to actually move houses like a couple of times karena kerusuhan, dan ternyata nggak cuma sampai situ dramanya. So my dad got stroke kan tahun 2001 ya Pak ya. Well actually 2005. 2005. Jadi we're talking about mata pencarian keluarga satu-satunya datang dari my dad's company. And then what happened is that we didn't have insurance. Jadi like we need to actually, my mom itu needed to sell her properties, emas, pinjam uang dan segala macam untuk kayak memang benar-benar pay the medical bills, right, at that time. Dan akhirnya apa yang terjadi adalah ya of course karena dia stroke, dia sebelah tubuhnya lumpuh, dia nggak bisa lagi menjalani perusahaannya kayak gitu. Dan akhirnya my mom needed to actually step up, dan yang dia lakuin adalah dia kalau Pak Gita tahu, di daerah-daerah itu tuh biasanya ada, kalau di sini kan banyak penjual bensin eceran ya. Nah dia tuh jual minyak tanah eceran di jalan. That's what she did kayak gitu to actually like menghidupi kita semua kayak gitu. And then the chances like came 2006 dulu gara-gara Ambon Maluku kerusuhan, and Australia and Ambon has a very close relationship. Betul. Ada dulu kesempatan untuk menjadi student exchange kayak gitu di Australia.
Dan waktu itu sama sekali nggak bisa bahasa Inggris.
Sama sekali nggak bisa bahasa Inggris. Not even like I mean nggak bisa bahasa Inggris, nggak ada reference untuk belajar.
Kalau saya dengar Anda begini kan bahasa Inggris Anda tuh sangat proficient atau sangat piawai lah.
It's like watching a lot of movies.
So. Ya, nggak penting lah untuk orang tuh ngerti gitu loh transisi Anda dari nowhere di Ambon, nggak ada exposure sama sekali ke pengetahuan bahasa Inggris.
For sure. Pada saat waktu itu sebenarnya I was taking risk. I think I was kayak thinking, kalau misalnya kayak you wanna do something atau you wanna be better kayak gitu, dan ya lo harus maksain diri kayak gitu. The way that I did that adalah saya nggak punya kondisi.
Nggak apa-apa, pakai gue juga.
Nggak punya bahasa Inggris dan segala macam, tapi this is an once in life opportunity, for me to actually see the life outside Ambon, outside this kondisi yang ya udah kerusuhan segala macam yang you don't know, right? I didn't have any benchmark or comparison at that time pagi. Jadi I was like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity, I should take it, right? Mau bisa kesana bisa bahasanya pakai sign language or whatever it is, nanti I'll figure something out, right? Cuman that time it was super challenging, right? Karena kayak gini, I'm the only child, right? Anak satu-satunya kayak gitu. My dad at that time was still in hospitals, right? Dan my mom selling minyak tanah. Jadi the feelings of leaving them,
Wow. Guilt trip.
Exactly, right? And it's very difficult, right? At that time. Cuman I feel like this is an opportunity that just make your life different kayak gitu. And I think yang bikin akhirnya maju adalah justru my mom yang bilang bahwa look, this is it. I think I'm very grateful that I was born in the in a family yang memang they are the definitive definitions of people pleaser. So they put people's even families sendiri punya kepentingan di atas mereka. Jadi mama say take it, this is something that you nggak bisa lagi kayak gitu.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly right. So then I flew to Aussies and did a student
Di
exchange.
kota apa di Australia?
Darwin.
Okay.
So it wasn't fancy, Melbourne, Sydney. It was Darwin, right? But then it's still okay. And even itu pertama kalinya banget saya melihat maksudnya saya melihat dunia ya pagi. Back in Ambon, I didn't even know kayak di Ambon itu kalau you udah SMA, komputer itu back in the days, and we're talking about 2006 already ya ini ya. Itu tuh lock-in library is barang mewah ya. So you cannot you just kayak have 1 hour every week. Itu tuh di unlock pada saat pelajaran TIK dulu namanya kayak gitu. So you didn't have access or whatsoever. When I was in Aussie, it was oh wow, this is amazing.
Akses 24/7.
Exactly, and it's there's a lot of technologies, industri yang lagi naik dulu. ABC sudah mulai a lot of this citizen journalism, where all the citizens bisa contribute journalism dengan teknologi dan segala macam. Dan that was really becoming a eye opener sih.
Ini kelas berapa, Man?
Itu tuh SMA kelas 11 ya berarti ya.
Oke, kelas 2.
Ya, kelas 2 SMA, correct. So I was there for yes, I think it was 7-8 months di sana. Itu yang kayak kemudian membuat membakar ambisi mungkin ya. Karena you didn't have any benchmark before kan Pak. What you know adalah life education is like this. You sit with 100 people kayak gitu, dan what you learn adalah ya gitu-itu aja dan segala macam. But when you're there, itu benar-benar nge-create a benchmark, dan I was so grateful with that experience. Akhirnya apa yang terjadi adalah I was okay. I know what to do next. Kayak gitu. I really like this digital, technologies industries. Then I felt bahwa this could be a really amazing futures for me. Jadi pas I was back di Indo. I got 2 opportunities. Satu adalah dulu Ambon sama Makassar dekat banget. Jadi I got full scholarship for jadi dokter di Unhas, atau scholarship untuk di Telkom Universities Bandung. Technology management business, right? And of course, you're familiar with how conventional families Indonesians Timur berpikir bahwa why you're giving out, karena di orang Indonesia Timur itu, orang Ambon, at least my family ya, hopefully it's all for dokter itu tuh right away nge-upgrade your family status, right?
Mulia sekali.
Benar, it's oh wow, dokter, dia punya anak tuh
sekarang
dokter.
juga masih.
Ya, but I just I didn't feel that it's my passions. Then my options adalah, so I needed quick cash, quick money at that time. Maksudnya I need to actually earn some money. Dan I know bahwa being a doctor could be sekolahnya panjang banget, kayak gitu. And then the other options yang kayak ini yang sesuai dengan my passions, which is the technology industry, business management of it. Then I went to Telkom universities. Jadi udah mulai kuliah 2007. And of course, right, it was a different life experience. Karena, I mean, unfortunately, I don't say it's everyone. Cuman, the thinking of people ketika you say, oh ini orang Ambon atau orang Timuran segalanya, still siapa sih dia ini and stuff like that.
Penting. Nggak remeh.
But it's then give you an underdog mindset, right? Which is that you want to prove them wrong. So then I was quite lucky untuk bisa graduate top of my class. Dan akhirnya kayak gitu mulai kerja di Jakarta, dan kehidupan di Bandung juga pada saat kuliah nggak gampang. Saya it was something yang kayak setiap kali diingat-ingat tuh make me really grateful of where I am today kayak gitu. Karena
tapi dapat beasiswa kan?
Partial beasiswa,
right? Jadi pas-pasan banget dong.
Pas-pasan banget. Wah, Pak. Dulu kosan saya di Bandung, ini we're talking about 2007 2008 ya. Kosan saya tuh 3 juta setahun ya, Pak. Jadi I don't know if you can picture
Looks
that.
Banget tuh.
3 juta setahun, bukan sebulan ya, 3 juta setahun ya, kayak gitu.
Termasuk sarapan atau?
Wah, dulu ada momen-momen ya Pak, di mana nasi itu beli dari malam, kalau paginya mau sarapan diangetin, itu matahari kan langsung kena pintu depan ya. Jadi digantungin di pintu, biar dia anget dulu baru dimakan. I'm not kidding.
Nggak ada penghangat atau kompor atau apa?
I don't have, right?
I
didn't have at that time. Cuman it's okay, right? Karena ini yang maksudnya tadi saya bilang, it shape your mentality. Karena you live in 3 million per year, kosan, you maybe makan nasi dingin dan segala macam, but you've been through worse ketika you were back in Ambon, right? So I think overall good dan segala macam. I graduated, I took opportunity untuk benar-benar ngeseriusin my expertise and skills in the digital area marketing. Jadi I join one of a digital agency di sini di Jakarta, dan kemudian setelah itu I was so into travel. More of karena, to be honest with you, itu more karena gara-gara kesel. Jadi gini, ketika you di Aussie and at that time people actually think that Indonesia is in Bali, not the other way around. Kayak gitu, right? Terus then pas setiap kali saya bilang bahwa saya dari Maluku, saya dari Indonesia, dan itu bagian mananya Bali kayak gitu. It's okay. Terus kayak no, the other way, Bali is in Indonesia, dan we have so many amazing places di Indonesia kayak gitu. Dan okay, show me some pictures. I was like, the only 2 provinces yang I've been adalah Maluku, dan dulu sempat di Bali bentar buat training sebelum student exchange before Aussies, right? And then I was like, okay, it probably makes sense untuk start coba traveling, ngelihat a bit more of Indonesians and stuff. And that got me very into travel, and I joined travel industry. Back in the days ini zaman-zaman Traveloka baru mulai dan segala macam. Travel industry one of the biggest or high growth industry back then. So I joined this early stage company called Wigo.com dari Singapore. I then took an opportunity to actually leading digital marketing for Accor hotels for Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. And then there is a shift in the market at that time. Dari mulai travel ke semua orang ngomongin e-commerce kayak gitu. Wow. And then dulu tuh sebenarnya my principle on learning things is I follow the money, Pak. I mean I'm a marketing person, right? Kayak gitu. So the rule of thumb is if there is one industry yang bisa spend more money on marketing, that's equals to my ability to learn more. Karena if I spend more money, of course not my money, the company money, then I can learn more, right? And at that time, like e-commerce was really booming and was really mulai naik banget kan kayak gitu. Then I joined a e-commerce company. Jadi I joined Shopee back in the days, very early, and then after that I joined Lazada. Then pengalaman di Shopee dan di Lazada yang kayak kemudian membuat lebih dekat dengan teman-teman brand founders di Indonesia, like local brand founders.
Sebelum ke situ, Anda travel ke 34 provinsi. Apa yang Anda temukan mengenai Indonesia atau keindonesiaan yang ada?
It was quite. Jadi dulu when pas masih muda ya, I'm not saying that I'm old now, but
baru 25 kan waktu itu.
Jadi I was making a promise that mau nge-visit semua 34 provinsi sebelum umur 25 kayak gitu. Just because at that time kan belum punya komitmen, belum nikah, belum ada tanggungan segalanya. You do you kayak gitu. Akhirnya that happens. I think the biggest learning atau eye openers from these all travels is that how people our people is just so nice, ketika ke daerah-daerah ya, terutama daerah-daerah kecil, we're talking about like ke Sumba dan segala macam, it's mereka itu gampang bahagia, like the definitions of bahagia itu sederhana. It's like applied for them. It's very different with us kan Pak. Gitu. Karena di kita macet dikit udah kayak komplain kayak gitu kan. Kita udah ngeluh dan segala macam.
Take it for granted.
Exactly, for them, I was in a village where they need to actually walk for 5 kilometers to actually get access to water, and it's not even clean water to drink, and they're okay, they're happy, Jadi itu yang kayak kemudian bikin you again sense of grateful itu tuh jadi lebih tambah kayak gitu. Dan I think itu yang juga bikin menjadi ketagihan kayak gitu. Ketika you udah visit, akhirnya pengen lihat yang lain-lain karena the dynamic of like people across the Indonesia is very different. Dan we should be very proud of it karena you can imagine how difficult it's a country dengan orang yang begitu berbeda-beda. Tapi like when you actually meet them, dia punya level of the definitions of ramahnya mereka itu tuh beda-beda. The definitions of like how they greet people, how like they talk to you dan segala macam beda-beda. But it's still like very friendly, it's still very ramah dan segala macam kayak gitu.
Kelihatan nggak entrepreneurial spiritnya mereka tuh udah cukup atau kurang atau lebih dari cukup?
Di daerah-daerah ya. I think back in the days itu tuh mereka punya yang saya tangkap adalah the fighter mentality itu tuh ada ya. Jadi maksudnya adalah mereka nggak berharap sama orang lain dan segala macam. They need to actually find their own way, which is like a very strong cikal bakal untuk menjadi entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs you need to have that mentality as well kayak gitu. Nah cuman the thinking of what's possible Pak, itu yang kayak mungkin very big gap antara mereka yang di daerah dengan kita yang di kota besar kayak gitu, right? Karena for us
itu hanya karena kurang exposure aja.
Exactly my point Pak. Dan kurang exposure dan like kurang contoh yang mungkin dekat sama mereka kayak gitu. Back in the days ketika we're thinking about siapa sih yang kayak bisa menjadi entrepreneur sukses bikin brand besar segala macam, mungkin kepikirannya adalah mungkin dia yang datang dari I don't know keluarga yang berada dan segala macam. But these days that's not the case anymore. Right? We see so many examples of even everyone yang kayak berangkat dari kos-kosan can actually build a 10 billion revenue business kayak gitu. And we should like always pushing more and more of these examples. Gitu.
Mas, sebelum kita maju, tapi ini agak-agak filsuf, tapi arti hidup tuh untuk Anda apa sih?
Pak, jadi I'm 32 years old ya. Jadi this is like I can answer based on kayak maybe 32 years experience. For me kayak the way that I see hidup itu tuh adalah like can you actually make other people life better? Again maybe this is like because I was raised in a family yang benar-benar people pleaser banget. But we want to actually see people like life better. Kayak gitu. And in every like step and milestones of my life itu sesuatu yang I always keep in mind kayak gitu. in the work life atau in like apa namanya personal life dan segala macam, it's something that I always try to actually hold lah basically. Yeah.
Menarik. Ini nyambung nih dengan apa yang Anda lakukan sekarang kan?
Yes. So I think again back in the e-commerce day tadi, when mulai ketemu banyak teman-teman brand founders, saya tuh kayak bisa ngelihat bahwa they have a very strong ambitious, right? Dia punya brandnya udah 100-200 juta sebulan kayak gitu. Tapi like they're hungry to actually find out gimana nih bisa 100-200 juta ini bisa 2-3 M atau 10-15 M sebulan kayak gitu. But they simply like don't know how karena ya obviously I mean you simply don't know what you don't know kayak gitu kan. But they have like that ambitious, they have like that apa namanya keinginan untuk kayak bisa tahu. So itu yang kayak kemudian bikin menginspirasi membuat HiFast kayak gitu karena back in the days brand founders itu tuh they're very amazing hustler. They have very amazing understanding of like the products and the customers karena beda ya mindsetnya tuh dengan cara kita ketika ngebangun a proper company dan segala macam. They're actually talking to the customers like closely, they engage with the customer dan akhirnya dia punya sense of like apa ya understanding their customers itu much better kayak gitu. Even like compared to a lot of us kayak gitu as well. Mereka very close with them. Cuma mereka punya challenges yang banyak juga. Ya capital, biasanya tuh mereka reinvest their profit. Jadi growth-nya tuh yang bisa kayak gini akhirnya kehalang karena ya harus muter-muter modal aja. Jadi kayak gini kayak gitu.
Bahkan bisa begini juga.
Betul, karena juga bisa turun kalau manage it wrongly kayak gitu. Yang kedua adalah they don't have the enough expertise. Don't get me wrong, I think they're very pekerja keras, smart, street smart kayak gitu kan. Cuman when it comes to to actually practicalities atau technicalities, retail expansions, GTs, MTs, modern trade dan segala macam, atau e-commerce, of course they have a limited knowledge, right? Dan the third one adalah the ecosystems kayak gitu. Mereka berangkat dari kayak nge-manage brand dari ruko-ruko, rumah sendiri, kos-kosan segala macam. But at some point when you wanna make it the brand big, you wanna have a proper ecosystems. Jadi kemudian itu ide HiFast keluar kayak gitu. Gimana kalau instead of kayak kita bikin brand dari nol, what if like we work with these amazing brand founders that have amazing energy, have amazing like ideas of products of how we can be very community brand dekat sama moms community dan segala macam. And HiFast wise we provide the those three tadi, expertise of the team, kita punya 350 orang sekarang. The capitals and also the ecosystems kayak gitu. Karena of course retail adalah is all about scale of economics as well. Kayak gitu. Jadi semakin kita ngumpulin semua brand-brand ini ke dalam satu warehouse akan jauh lebih murah daripada dia ngelakuin warehouse sendiri-sendiri kayak gitu. As simple like that. But when we pitch to when we try to actually pitch this idea ya Pak to the brand founders on the early 2020, it received amazing responses karena the way that I say this like look. We've been too long becoming a manufacturer country, to be honest with you, Pak. Kayak gitu. There's a lot of like global brands producing amazing products. Kita punya amazing access to the manufacturers. A lot of like global brands do the productions here, manufacture here. I think people always like underestimate us that we don't have the creativity talent untuk nge-create some regional or even global brands. Kayak gitu. And this is the era, this is the time that we should prove that wrong because there's technologies and we have creative people. But come on, like all of these people here is like creative people, and we have the expertise, we have the experience now. Karena like we've worked with the big companies before and segala macam, and the relevancy of the product and brand. I mean, brand founders engage with their customers. Our Indonesian people in daily basis. Kalau misalnya compare to us and global brand yang kira-kira tahu sih kebutuhan orang Indonesia nih yang paling relevan tuh apa? Of course it will be us kayak gitu. So then like we pitch them, we be like, well, what's stopping us to actually build the next Unilever and P&Gs? But local brand instead of like just apa namanya licensing global brand atau apa kayak gimana. Dan yeah, we receive amazing responses, and that's what keep us going until today. We have over 35 brands on our portfolios right now. We deploy over 400 billion capitals. Then we've seen we invest in the company Pak based in Semarang that they did 1.5 billion revenue in monthly basis, and now they're at 16 billion revenue in monthly basis, and it was just 10 months ago.
Dalam 10 bulan. Wow.
And they're doing 37% EBITDA margins.
Kalau menurut Anda dari 3 atribut tadi, yang paling game changing yang mana? Untuk gini loh, kepentingan ada satu brand dari Indonesia atau beberapa atau banyak bisa bersaing dengan brand-brand dunia.
Sure. It's a very good question, Pak. Jadi kalau misalnya kayak Bapak nanya ke saya, kira-kira dari 3 tadi itu tuh yang paling penting yang mana?
Yeah.
I would say the fundamentals, and the fundamentals is the people.
Okay.
Karena this is the basic idea of what we do, right?
Okay.
Brand founders, you punya expertise di product, how the communities dan segala macam, how we can actually make the brand closer to the communities. Us we have the amazing team yang ngelakuin end to end dan tahu how we can actually go ke regional cross border facilities dan segala macam. And everything else we can figure things out together as a partner. Jadi the way that we do the business adalah we come together as a partners dan dalam susah atau senang. Setiap kali kayak we pitch to the brand ya Pak, we always say that we hate to call ourselves investor. We're not investors, right?
Partners.
Dan saya nggak pernah mau untuk ngejanjiin brand bahwa kalau you join Highfast portfolio, revenue you akan 10x in the next 1 year or so. Tapi what we usually promise them is that, gua akan sama lo dalam susah dan senang. The mindset adalah we sit down together, we figuring out the playbook A, we implement, we execute it. Kalau playbook A ini nggak bisa, nggak jalan, we come back, we sit again, and come up with the playbook B, and then try again sampai dapat growth factornya kayak gimana. That's always our principle, kayak gitu.
Jadi lebih human capital daripada financial capital.
Look, Pak, financial capital, I think these amazing brands that doing 40-50% EBITDA margin, they can get capital from anywhere. Yeah. Bankings and banyak solusi di luar sana
VC,
sekarang. VCs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Cuman sebenarnya kebanyakan dari mereka ketika we talk to them.
Tapi saya tuh lagi ngobrol mengenai dalam konteks gimana mereka bisa mengglobal ya.
Betul.
Tapi mungkin di satu titik tuh kebutuhan dana tuh
bakal ada, for sure.
Jauh lebih penting daripada sebelum-sebelumnya.
Betul. I think kebutuhan dana itu pasti ada at few scales, right? Karena you tetap butuh duit untuk inventory dan segala macam. Cuman sebenarnya kayak yang saya lihat ya Pak, kebanyakan brand founder, we've been talking to over I think 1,000 brands so far di Indonesia. The number one thing yang kayak we know for sure the product will sell amazingly in Singapore, in Southeast Asia, even in US atau Australia kayak gitu. We know the brands will be can be received very well for the local markets as well and stuff. The capital part we can figure things out dari banking atau dari assets dari kita sendiri dan segala macam. Cuman again, how we actually open the path into that, itu yang kayak really missing right now. That's where we came kayak gitu.
Kalau Anda udah ngelihat ribuan dan yang udah bermitra dengan Anda itu baru puluhan kan, success rate-nya juga nggak terlalu tinggi kan. Ya itu mungkin mencerminkan proses seleksi yang mana Anda tuh sangat selektif, atau mungkin ya nggak terlalu banyak wirausaha yang itu ya, yang mungkin berkenan untuk masuk dalam ranah atau pentas regional ataupun dunia.
Betul Pak. Jadi I think one is we are being very selective. Cuman sebenarnya Pak, you touch a very good point.
Yeah.
Sayangnya ya Pak, I really hate when we discover this, but
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of brand founders yang dia punya amazing brands, amazing products, but they're not like, ambitious enough. They have one car, they have one houses, they like, doing maybe 200, 300, 400 juta sebulan, and they're like, I'm happy, and that's okay, right?
That's okay.
That's okay. They're just, but it's just sayang banget aja sih, kayak gitu. And I think like, that's ketika like we looking into a brand. Yes, we have a criteria of minimum revenue, EBITDA dan segala macam. Tapi the biggest factors yang biasanya kita consider adalah kayak how the brand founders. We want them like that those who actually have a very high ambitions that like say to me kayak Matt, gila man, gue Indonesia gue udah bosen nih. Ini gue udah 10M di Indonesia kayak gitu. Gimana nih gue bisa sell di Thailand, di Singapura? Gimana gue bisa masuk ke Amazon FBA dan segala macam. And we like those guys, right? Yeah. Karena like they have the energy. Karena entrepreneurship is very exhausted, but gitu. Yeah. It's a lot of challenges. It's a lot of like, oh my god, like crying in the nights. Always constant fears that you bisa bayar gaji karyawan atau enggak sih? I mean for the brand founders, right? Cuman we're looking for like those who actually have that mentality dan very ambitious.
Kita bisa berdebat ya mengenai ambisi penting atau enggak ya. Tapi kalau saya tuh mikirnya, kalau ambisi itu nggak setinggi apa yang kita inginkan, nanti ujung-ujungnya mereka juga bisa terkikis kan.
Betul.
Oleh pesaing yang bisa datang dari sampingnya atau dari luar. Nah itu, apakah itu sudah ada kesadaran di kalangan atau mereka yang nggak terlalu menunjukkan ambisi yang tinggi?
Itu sih sebenarnya kayak mungkin
minimum ya, kalau menurut saya sih kewajiban moral kita atau Anda ya adalah untuk mensosialisasikan itu. It's okay not to be ambitious, tapi resikonya ada. Betul. Mungkin 5 tahun lagi atau 2 minggu lagi atau berapa tahun lagi. Betul. Kalau nanti orang di luar atau tetangga atau siapa.
That's exactly right. Jadi I think setiap kali kita ngobrol sama brand founders ya Pak ya, kita berusaha untuk nge-positioning ourselves sebagai eye opener buat mereka juga. Yeah. That yes, you're doing amazing, 700 juta, 700 juta, 1M sebulan dan segala macam kayak gitu. But there will be a next, there will be a next brand coming in that has more kayak ambitious than access to capital or whatsoever dan segala macam yang kayak bisa nikung you lah kayak gitu. And I feel like sometimes it is about like their nature maybe. Yeah. But, like they just like people yang kayak memang living in the prefer to actually living in the comfortable zones, right? And again that's okay, but it's the people's choices, right? Cuman for us at least in Hi-Fast kita lebih prefer untuk bekerja sama dengan teman-teman brand founders yang again has a amazing level of ambitious. And
pastilah. Itu selaras dengan bisnis model Anda.
Betul.
Karena termotivasi kan dengan scale.
Dan never like never give up. Dan selalu aus, selalu hungry kayak gitu. On like okay, what we do next? Kalau kita udah kayak ngeliat growth ceilingnya udah mulai kelihatan nih, okay, what's next kayak gitu. Karena like we operate on the same way as well, right? On Hi-Fast kayak gitu. Again, I mean.
Yeah. Ini kalau saya bungkus dalam konteks produktivitas. Indonesia tuh produktivitasnya relatif masih rendah di $24.000 per orang per tahun untuk barang dan jasa. Dibanding Singapura di 170.000. Ya kan? Ya itu mungkin berkorelasi dengan kualitas pendidikan mereka, infrastruktur, ekosistem dan konektivitas mereka dengan banyak jalur dan inklusi keuangan, banyak lah. Nah, apa yang Anda lakukan dalam batas logika ya, itu menopang kepentingan kita untuk meningkatkan bukan hanya produksi, tapi produktivitas.
Betul.
Apalagi kalau ambisinya ini nggak terbendung ya, dan itu dia dikelilingi sama ekosistem dan sistem eksekusi yang memadai.
Betul.
Nah ini, what's the limit? Is the sky the limit, or?
I would like to believe so. Yeah. Karena sebenarnya kayak gini ya Pak ya, I don't see any reasons why we cannot be atau we cannot produce a global brands atau regional brands in the market.
Wah, itu luar biasa.
I mean,
Saya tuh sering ngimpi loh, gimana supaya ada brand dari Indonesia, syukur-syukur dari Pulau Rote, yang seperti Apple gitu loh,
yes,
atau seperti Adidas.
betul Pak, seriously, right? Karena look, I mean, we did a lot of research on like US brands, right? You name it, Caspers, Glossier's, all those brands yang udah IPO, Alberts dan segala macam. When if like you compare how like how the brands approach kayak gitu ya, compared to like us here, of course the very different scale ya. Cuman the way that they execute things, I feel like we have a very good chances Pak, kayak gitu. We have amazing chances. Ini sekarang kayak gimana? We are catch up to speed aja on like a lot of things kayak gitu. Karena like obviously US is very mature markets already. Tapi sekarang the good things is Pak, the e-commerce penetrations in the market is crazy now. I mean it's growing very significantly. We have a chance on that kayak gitu. Which is like why we do what we do right now kayak gitu. Karena look Pak, to be honest, the way that I said, one of the biggest factors we haven't seen that happen as well adalah kita tuh butuh lebih banyak orang optimis di negara ini Pak, benar. Aduh.
Makanya Anda harus bercerita mengenai jalan hidup Anda.
Karena,
gila loh, who would have thought, lahir di Ambon, nggak bisa ngomong Inggris, nggak pernah belajar bahasa Inggris, sekarang Anda cenderungan mengartikulasikan segalanya dalam bahasa Inggris tuh jauh lebih tinggi daripada bahasa Indonesia. Ini transform banget kan, transformasi yang luar biasa loh. Dan Anda tuh nggak linglung, nggak takut ngobrol sama orang dari manapun sekarang.
Exactly.
Flashback ke tahun 99, nggak pernah kepikiran kan?
Iya, jauh sih kepikiran.
Dan ini bisa terjadi loh dengan orang di Jember, Tarakan, Belitung, Pulau Rote, sekali lagi saya ngomong.
Exactly sih Pak. Itu yang yang saya selalu bilang ke tim even as well, right? That I think, look, yes, we want to create this company. At the end of everything, kayak it's business. We want to make profits. We're profitable dan segala macam. But at the end of things, right? The way that you want to look at our business is that this is kita bikin panggung, right? Kita bikinin sebuah panggung besar, di mana kayak kita bisa bilang, karena setiap kali we invest on the brand ya Pak, we always behind the scene ya. Jadi Hive selalu behind the scenes, like we always let the brand founders on the front face. Karena apa Pak? Karena kayak we want to be able, kalau sekarang I have 35 brand founders, these 35 brand founders can actually show for 10-15 million millennials generations out there. Bahwa even I'm operating my brand dari Jember, dari Klaten, dari Rote, dari Ambon, I can still do it, and it's people like to actually see example yang memang relevant for them, right? Instead of some big names atau artis dan segala macam, they wanna see okay, someone ini brand founder A kayak gitu yang dari Semarang, dari Malang dan segala macam yang probably come from nothing family as well, they can be something kayak gitu. And that I think would be one of the most powerful mindset changes. Karena we need that Pak. We need more people in this country yang
positivitas.
Betul Pak. More positive, more optimism. Karena we've been living in the in the very pessimistic environments, right?
Tapi itu mungkin mulai dari rumah tangga, sekolah,
betul,
kantor, kelurahan, kabupaten, provinsi. Itu ekosistemnya harus mendukung kan, untuk kita selalu berpikir positif kan.
We can debate on that Pak.
Nah gimana? Silakan.
Karena you see, at least for this one I flashback in my experience.
Iya, Anda tuh perkecualian atau anomali kan.
Iya.
Tapi gimana kita bisa mass produce?
Nah, exactly. Itu yang mungkin kayak still sekarang yang berusaha try to actually figuring out. Karena I want to actually create more of these anomalies, Pak. Dengan cara apa? I mean, we have technology sekarang. This again, 35 brand founders. I mean, we can do a lot of storytelling dan segala macam that can actually inspire those again on the tier 2, tier 3 cities bahwa oh ternyata emang bisa kayak gitu.
Iya.
Like that's what we're trying to do at the end of things, right?
Masing-masing dari 35 brand holders ini, mereka punya ambisi global.
For sure. And we're doing it right now, right? Jadi kayak kita, alhamdulillah sekarang HiFast we have a team in 4 countries right now. Jadi Indonesia of course our HQ, we have in Singapore, Malaysia, sama Thailand. And we just established a cross-border facility. Dan I think 7 of our brands sekarang is piloting of cross-borders ke selling di Singapura sama Malaysia kayak gitu. Karena like again, right? It's not that we don't think about the Indonesia only ya. Cuman again tadi sih, I don't see any reasons to be honest Pak that we
untuk kita nggak bisa, iya kan?
Bisa.
Setuju
like,
sekali.
We've been kayak on the constant gimana bahasanya, on the constant
bubble,
not bullet ya. Cuman kayak you nggak bisa lah, lu ya udah lu jualan
kita
di
dalam
Indonesia
bubble
aja lah.
begitu.
Yeah, exactly right.
Di parkir di situ.
Yeah, but when you think about it, Pak, look, apa coba yang kurang? We have access to manufacturers, we have access to capital, we are creative people, right?
Oke lah, tapi ini juga kita bisa berdebat karena saya tuh ngelihat Indonesia tuh sebagai negara terbesar nomor 4 di dunia. Kita tuh jangan berpikir kompetisi dengan, nggak usah sebut lama lah, tapi negara-negara yang posisinya tuh di puluhan. Kita ngelihat yang di top 5, top 10 aja di dunia dari sisi PDB kayak, atau ekonomi, dari sisi populasi kayak, dari sisi positioning geostrategis kita atau apa, ya udah kita fokus di situ aja. Gimana nih untuk gue bisa jadi kayak begitu?
Betul.
Iya kan?
Betul, Pak. Betul,
nah,
Pak.
kalau kita bandingin dengan Tiongkok, kita jauh kalah. Iya kan? Kita bandingin dengan, nggak usah Amerika sama Eropa, dengan India, kita masih kalah lah.
Betul.
Dalam beberapa metrik. Nah, ini gimana untuk kita bisa memperbaiki diri?
Betul, Pak. Baby
Ya kan?
steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Tapi ini dalam 5 tahun ke depan Anda bisa melihat berapa brand yang bisa jadi mitra Anda?
So I think kalau sekarang even kayak di akhir 2022 ini aja we've been super lucky and we're super humbled about this at this point, Pak. More and more brands actually reaching out to us kayak gitu. Dan I think kayak at the end of this year kita akan kayak punya sekitar 60-70 brands on our portfolios. Dan but the most bukan most important KPI sebenarnya, cuman the ambitious that we're trying to achieve. Of course, we want to build a healthy business ya Pak. Jadi all of our portfolios we push it like on the disciplines, on the financials, needs to be profits dan segala macam. But at this year itu tuh we target 20% of our group level revenue coming from non-Indonesia revenue, non-Indonesia customers. Karena ya tadi ambitious tadi itu tuh. At the end of things ya Pak ya, this is a business. This is I wouldn't say a show off business ya, cuman is our chance, our efforts to actually create this stage dan benar-benar nge-showing a real example bahwa yang orang-orang sebelumnya berpikir bahwa it's not possible, it's possible actually. That's what we're aiming, right? Kayak gitu Pak, kayak gitu. People like will think nggak mungkin banget we can actually sell very nicely di Singapore, like who would buy our local brands in Singapore? But okay, talk to us in 1 year and we'll see what happens, right? Kayak gitu.
Bisa diasumsiin nggak sih masing-masing dari 35 founders ini kapasitas komunikasinya tuh cukup berkenan?
I think they are amazing storytelling juga.
Itu yang saya mau highlight.
Betul, Pak.
Saya mau coba tarik dari sini.
Nah, setiap kali jadi the way that we operate kayak gini biasanya apa ya? When we invest into one brand, biasanya HiFast nge-operate the brand lumayan all those operational kayak warehouses, fulfillment, e-commerce dan segala macam we manage it, right? Jadi we help them kayak gitu with our team. Kemudian the brand founders ini fokus on the area on things yang they're really passionate about and they really like. Jadi biasanya product development, they're very passionate about product development dan they understand the market well kayak gitu kan. The other things adalah being the community engagement. Karena kayak gini loh Pak, there is a 2 ways of how you wanna build a brand. You wanna go Casper way in US, the mattress company. Casper way is a very They invest 25-30% of their revenue into marketing, and people just see it as another brand. Kayak gitu. That's how, big companies and FMCG build their brand. The other way of like you build the brand adalah kayak Glossier way. Glossier is very community driven brand. Kan? You talk to your community, you talk to the ladies, you talk to like the moms, and you feel like very close sama mereka. The brand founders doing it right now. Jadi they are the one who actually replying ke Instagram post, doing the live dan segala macam. Karena ya this is the aspect yang we wanna keep. We don't wanna like make it just another like cult brand kayak gitu. Right?
Engagementnya harus tinggi.
Betul, warm, people can relate. Oh ini brand foundersnya, oh semangat banget nih. Dan they do a regular, setiap kali new collections mereka yang do the IG live dan segala macam. So their storytelling skills itu tuh diasah ke situ. Of course nggak semua ya Pak ya. But we're getting there kayak gitu.
Karena bisa bahasa Inggris semua?
Nggak semua.
Oke. Nah gimana kalau mereka mau go internasional?
We'll help them.
Oke.
In a way or another, Pak. Karena I feels like bahwa this is why we come as a partners, right? Kayak gitu. Go global dengan cara satu dengan yang lain from the operational perspective daripada dia gimana ngomong dan segala macam, we'll figure something.
Ya mau Inggris kayak atau Mandarin atau
betul,
apa.
Pak.
Pokoknya internasional.
At this point like if you ask me bahwa lu plannya udah mantap nggak semuanya? I would be very kalau I say bahwa I figure everything out. We figure everything out. As we're still 2 years old business, but then a lot of things that we're still figuring out. But what I can say is that we're very excited. Karena again, back to yang tadi apa ya, I don't see any reasons why we cannot do this, Pak. I mean, to be honest, right? Jadi
you figured out the art of the possible. Ya kan? Dan kadang-kadang orang tuh dikritik karena dia mungkin kebanyakan untuk keseringan ngomong bahasa Inggris atau apa, tapi ya mungkin dia punya aspirasi untuk berkomunikasi dengan dunia internasional dan bersaing dengan dunia internasional.
Betul.
Apalagi kalau teman-teman kita nih 35 orang mau bersaing di pentas internasional.
Betul,
ya,
Pak.
mau nggak mau lah mereka harus bisa berkomunikasi.
Satu hal yang kayak memang benar-benar harus kita appreciate adalah they want to try.
Iya, bagus.
Dia benar-benar kayak pengen coba, dia kayak pengen okay, what can I do? Kayak gitu. Dan itu yang kayak kemudian selalu setiap kali tidur tuh bikin saya this is why we pick this brand.
Betul.
Kayak gitu.
Mat, saya mau nanya. Bisnis gini kan bisa dibilang barriers to entry-nya juga nggak terlalu susah-susah juga kan. I mean there could be a clone of you besok dengan ide yang sama ya dibedak-bedakin dikit lah.
Ya.
Dan apa yang ngetop the big guys di Indonesia untuk tidak melakukan?
That's a good question.
Dari melakukan hal yang sama dengan Anda yang Anda lakukan.
To answer this, mungkin saya pengen cerita juga bahwa business model yang kayak lumayan mirip HiFast itu di US sekarang is now one of the biggest atau the hottest industry at this point, right?
Namanya? Namanya apa?
Ada sekarang hampir mungkin kayak tiap bulan ada sesuatu yang ngelakuin kayak gini.
Siap.
The biggest one is Thrasio, ada Heyday, ada Perch, and Thrasio as example is the fastest unicorn in US history. And the way that they do adalah they acquire Amazon FBA business, right? Kayak gitu.
Dalam berapa bulan jadi unicorn?
Mereka unicorn in 14 months. Wow. Kayak gitu. Oh, jangan kaget, Pak. Ada juga kemudian copycat-nya di India namanya Mensa. Mensa unicorn in 6 months.
Itu mereka ngegorengnya jago.
Mereka storytelling-nya lebih jago dari saya.
That's what I meant.
But I think the tricky part, Pak, is that so much capital throwing into this space is becoming a capital game.
Yeah.
Right. Jadi banyak banget they raise like crazy 1 billion from Silver Lake dan segala macam. What happened is that Thrasio, or some of these guys used to like acquiring brands back in 2018 atau 19 dengan EBITDA multiple of 2 to 3. Jadi EBITDA multiple itu berapa setahun dikalikan 2 atau 3 lah. But right now, Pak, is actually increased into 8 to 9. At some point, the economics won't work. We caught it early on that one. Jadi dari awal, we don't want to make it as a capital game. So what happened is that since the very beginning of HiFast, we invest on the third pillar quite strong, which is the ecosystem. Kayak gitu. Ecosystems meaning here, sekarang Highfest punya offline stores di beberapa mall di Indonesia. We developing our resellers channels, we're developing cross-border facility, our own warehouses, our tech dan segala macam. Jadi apa? Ketika we come into the brands, ini nggak akan jadi I offer sekian, competitor offer 20% more dan jadi nggak jadi. Tapi we come, this is what our valuations offer. Tapi remember, we have like all these 350 team members,
supporting
expertise,
infrastructure,
ecosystems and stuff like that. Kayak gitu. So that's what our big believer. Kayak gitu. But we are big believer on developing a full end.
Okay, being a devil's advocate. Halo teman-teman, terima kasih sudah menjadi teman setia Endgame. Cek rilis terbaru dari Future Narrators Merchandise Collection dan dukung terus misi kami untuk mencari ide-ide terbaik dari narator-narator keren lainnya. Link pemesanan ada di deskripsi. Now back to the show. Mereka juga bisa kan?
Bisa.
Melakukan hal yang sama.
Bisa.
Ya kan?
And
what keeps you awake? Supaya nggak di-clone.
to be honest ya Pak ya.
Kalau di-clone nggak apa-apa lah, tapi Anda tetap bisa bersaing.
I think one thing yang kayak saya selalu belajar ya Pak. I mean saya belajar dari beberapa my role before. Ketika we're being too worried about competitors, then it will shift our focus.
Yes, that's the point I'm trying to get.
The way that I tell my team is that look, one is that at this point we are the largest in the market, but it doesn't matter, right? We were the very first mover in the market, Southeast Asia, kayak gitu. But it also doesn't matter, Pak, kayak gitu. What we really need to actually do is that we know for sure this business, has a real problem to solve, and we should be obsessed with that, kayak gitu. Karena nggak akan ada yang bisa stop, the other people to actually, raise fund and then create this business and segala macam. But if we really believe there is a problems in the market that we can solve and we're just obsessed with it, we will always have advantage points kayak gitu. And itu yang kayak kita selalu obsess sekarang. Karena to actually always worry about competitors nggak akan habis-habis. Kayak gitu. Dan daripada bikin saya nggak tidur juga, then you better focus on the positive things, which is okay. This is the problems yang kayak we haven't figuring out atau we haven't solved, how we can solve it. Kayak gitu. That's our principle sekarang.
Ya kalau kita nyuplik dari playbooknya Bezos lah ya, dia kan selalu mengacu ke tentunya day one mentality. Tapi yang 3 hal yang dia selalu kedepankan, at least dalam public domain ya, saya nggak tahu lebih dari 3 dalam kenyataan. Tapi yang pertama itu kan inovasi, 2 cost management, yang ketiga customer centricity. Nah kalau untuk Highfest apa mantranya apa?
Those are the exactly same things as well.
Okay.
Jadi look Pak, ketika everyone's this is public, jadi I cannot share a lot, but I think kita selalu berpikir what's next. So actually kayak gini Pak, it needs to be a balance between this. Karena kayak gini, one thing that I really hate about myself is that I'm very high. I'm very high energy person. Jadi my brain doesn't sleep ya, but which is very dangerous Pak. Karena every single hours, you always have ideas. Gimana kalau kita bikin ini juga? Terus kayak besoknya, gimana kalau kita bikin ini juga? And then it will make your company create an octopus strategy. And this octopus strategy biasanya nggak selalu bagus. Karena then you will lose focus.
Hampir setiap tamu di sini kayak begitu.
Exactly right. You always gimana kalau kita bikin masuk akal loh, bikin manufacture sendiri masuk akal loh. Tapi then it's dangerous, That's why I have people yang usually slap me on the face, not literally, cuman kayak jangan kayak gitu loh. To do that, dan dan I think that's quite important. Jadi but the innovations part is, based on the real problems we see in the market, right? We've running the company untuk 2 tahun sekarang dan we've facing real problems yang nggak cuman di face sama our brand. Jadi the advantage of us is that we manage our 35 brand ya Pak ya. Setiap hari kita ngeliatin ini dan segala macam dan kita tahu masalah yang dihadapi sama brand-brand ini. Masalah yang dihadapi brand-brand ini adalah masalah yang most likely juga dihadapi oleh there is a 14 million online merchants di Indonesia, So then like how we can actually create a solutions, to actually, also solve that problems, right? Itu yang kayak sekarang kita lagi obsessed and it's part of the innovations, right? Karena it will be like, a little bit different dengan our business model. Sekarang our business model is like we invest on brands, right? Kayak gitu. The second adalah cost. Jadi for sure, I think the discipline on the financial is something that we always keep kayak gitu. Karena kayak gini ya Pak ya, I'm coming from how do you say it, heavy money burning business, right? On the previous roles, right? At some point in as a marketing person soalnya ya Pak ya, like
Which is not unique.
Yeah, my job
yang dilakukan oleh banyak perusahaan-perusahaan lain.
Betul kan, my job adalah untuk spend money kayak gitu, right? As a marketing person. Tapi at some point ya Pak, you start to actually questioning about yourself kayak seberapa jauh like you can actually spend, I don't know, 10-15 million US dollar per month, on marketing and stuff kayak gitu, right? Jadi when we actually when kita mulai HiFast, the principle that we want to hold adalah kita nggak cuma pengen nge-build a scalable business, but also profitable business since day one. And HiFast has been profitable since day one. Wow. Kayak gitu. So this is like, then, and there's a lot of like, things yang we can do around this as well. Karena yang tadi retail itu tuh is actually about like how to actually you improve your unit of economics. The more, the bigger scale it gets, it will like, get more efficient, right? Kayak gitu. We as a group have that privilege, kayak gitu. Karena again, when we consolidate all the warehouses into one warehouses dan segala macam, will bring like, more efficient cost as well. Jadi we are very kita benar-benar kayak serius banget dalam hal ranah itu, kayak gitu.
Saya mau ngobrol mengenai valuasi. Akhir-akhir ini kalau kita lihat perkembangan di dunia seperti inilah, kayaknya insanely astronomical untuk conventional wisdom. Nah itu gimana Anda melihat perkembangan seperti itu? Ya kita melihat ada koreksi lah dalam beberapa hari terakhir ini kan karena kejadian-kejadian geopolitik dan segalanya. Dan kekhawatiran mengenai inflasi dan segalanya. Tapi ini gimana nih selama duitnya ini masih banyak? Sulit kan untuk ini terkoreksi secara sistemik ataupun berkesinambungan.
Ini pertanyaan yang harus dijawab dengan hati-hati. Nanti investor nggak ada yang mau ngasih saya valuasi gede, Pak.
Ini jebakan Batman.
But jadi prinsipal saya ya Pak, dan hopefully like some of the investor watch this as well, then they can verify. Well, there's no way that they can verify, tapi they know. Ketika saya ngobrol sama investors ya Pak, biasanya saya tuh less focus on the valuasi, karena sebenarnya kayak gini, is a big responsibilities atau it usually convert into a sizable pressure.
Iya. Betul.
Maksudnya
to deliver.
Betul, right? Delivered. For my principle is adalah valuasi sebuah company is actually closer to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Kayak gitu. It cannot be just putting 100x multiples of EBITDA atau revenue dan segala macam yang it's a little bit aggressive kayak gitu. Yeah. Karena what's come next adalah then like you will be investors like wants to actually have a very strong IRR dan returnnya itu tuh ya caranya adalah dengan nge-push their portfolio untuk kayak growing at all cost at all costs kayak gitu. At some point this is actually becoming a very dangerous as well kayak gitu. Makanya the way that like we do it, the reasons kenapa also we need to be always profitable dan disciplined about it adalah karena yang tadi sih Pak. I believe bahwa a business needs to be closer to the fundamentals. And what happens in the US market in the past 3, 4, 5 weeks ini that's actually showing that, right? That investors start to actually realize as well that business maybe needs to actually closer to the fundamentals as well. It cannot be just zero revenue dan raising a 2.5 billion valuations business. Kayak gitu. So yeah, so I think.
Menta berapa mitranya di India?
Kami kan Pak?
Di India itu Menta yang jadi unicorn dalam 6 bulan.
We don't know yet. I mean kayak kita nggak tahu dia punya sebanyaknya portfolio apa dan segala macam. Cuman ya, mereka established di 2021 awal kemarin. Cuman memang brand founders. The foundersnya is actually very strong. He was one of the largest company before in India. So
kita kalau ngobrol mengenai disrupsi ya, yang udah terjadi di Indonesia, itu kan yang nyata banget di jasa keuangan, terus di retail, garis miring marketplace, yang Anda juga udah menggeluti lah cukup lama. Terus ketiga di transportasi. Tapi masih banyak nih sektor-sektor yang belum terdisrupsi kan.
Betul.
Saya kalau ngelihat tuh di pertanian, garis miring peternakan, masih kecil sekali lah disrupsinya. Dan itu kan 14% dari ekonomi kita, 150-160 miliar dolar. Kesehatan udah ada beberapa pemain tapi masih belum terkupas, tergali. Itu juga 5% dari ekonomi kita.
Education as well.
Education 5% dari ekonomi kita. Pariwisata juga. Kalau kita bandingkan dengan Thailand, itu kita baru 1-2% dari ekonomi kita, yang wisata internasional ya. Tapi kalau di Thailand itu bisa 20% dari dari PDB untuk wisata internasional. Belum lagi property, real estate, untuk bisa menjembatani. Sebetulnya kalau kita lihat vertikal-vertikal kayak begini, dan tentunya energi belum terjadi, disrupsi. Sektor-sektor begini kan bisa tuh partisipasi kan.
Betul.
Dalam koridor Anda ini, yang bisa diinternasionalisasikan sebetulnya.
Betul Pak. I agree.
So the sky is the limit.
Betul. It's just kayak how we see the opportunities dan kayak how we want to seize that, right? Itu again from my perspective, this is really about seeing an opportunity dan willing to actually taking the risk to seize that opportunity as well, right? Karena dan mungkin punya mentality for it karena being a founder is exhausted, Pak. Oh my god.
Welcome to the party.
It's capek, it's a lot of sacrifices.
Kayak kepala RT kan rasanya.
Wah, kayak kepala suku, Pak. Iya benar. Dan it's startups is a lot of uncertainties, right?
Yeah.
Even that you're doing amazingly well dan segala macam, still ada area-area yang kayak you just don't know.
Betul.
Gitu, atau you haven't figuring out dan segala macam. Cuman sekarang kayak I'm a first time founder juga ya Pak. Jadi kayak this is from my point of view, ketika I started a business, I'm so lucky to actually have amazing advisors kayak gitu with us. My ex-bosses, back in Lazada's, a couple of friends dan segala macam. Otherwise, I felt I will kayak ngerasa kehilangan arah kayak gitu karena no one knew about fundraisings dan segala macam. There's a lot of things, right, that you need to actually know about being a founder. One thing yang kayak sekarang I'm trying to create with a couple of friends adalah to make this Indonesia founders community more solid. I mean in the sense of gimana nih kayak kita sekedar punya WhatsApp group atau kumpul-kumpul and then if there is a potential new founders come, maybe kita bisa share a couple of things dan segala macam because they will need it. I mean same ketika pada saat saya mulai dan saya benar-benar nanya a lot of stupid questions ke my advisors kayak gitu. So yeah, it's about also being supporting ecosystems, right?
Anda agnostik nggak sih mengenai dana dari luar atau dari dalam?
Uh,
You care? Atau
no, really.
oke.
Yeah.
Yang
Why,
penting-
Pak? You care? Do you care? Do you
Short,
have
short
concerns?
run nggak? Long run iya mungkin.
Okay. You mean bahwa IPOs, you try to bukan prevent ya, you prefer people atau these startups yang udah past 1 billion valuations, they wanna IPO here locally instead of like in US dan segala macam.
Oh enggak. Jadinya pendanaan awal untuk mereka-mereka, untuk Anda atau siapa, itu karena keterbatasan dana di dalam negeri,
Betul.
ya niscaya kita harus datang
Keluar.
dari luar kan. Datangkan dari luar. Tapi untuk sementara sih nggak apa-apa. Tapi kedepannya kan pasti bakal ada sektor-sektor yang agak-agak sensitif.
Betul.
Nyerempet
true.
dengan nasionalisme atau kedaulatan atau kepentingan kita untuk melindungi data, privasi data dan segalanya. Itu kan bisa aja dipelintir seakan-akan ada persepsi atau kenyataan penyalahgunaan
Betul.
data dan segalanya. Tapi ini mungkin pesan untuk kepentingan kita yang jauh lebih panjang. Mungkin harus dipikirkan pendanaan lokal itu juga harus robust.
Betul.
Dan ini bukan zero sum game, tapi untuk keseimbangan,
Betul.
ya kan?
Saya tuh justru lebih berpikirnya adalah gimana biar saya nggak usah fundraising lagi. Like that's important, right? To actually build a sustainable business yang
Iya.
you don't have to fundraising. You're making money dan segala macam, you can grow dan segala macam, dan you don't have to karena fundraising is very exhausted ya. But then it's something that I think if you ask 9 out of 10 founders, mereka akan bilang bahwa it's something that they're not really enjoying.
Yeah.
Right,
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job.
Dan it will take away a lot of your time untuk membina
Betul,
mitra-mitra.
betul,
Yang mana itu adalah tesis yang Anda jual.
betul. Exactly.
Kemana-mana kan?
Betul. Makanya saya tuh punya very big respect for founders yang memang benar-benar bootstrapping the companies dan
Betul.
can really build scalable one ya.
Betul.
It's really amazing, right? Karena even I feel like that's really another level.
Ya.
Kayak gitu. Ya.
Kita ngobrol mengenai masa depan. Biasanya saya mau tarik jauh nih ke 2045. Tapi step by step boleh, baby steps boleh. Gimana sih pandangan Anda?
2004
Bisa bicara mengenai kewirausahaan atau pemberdayaan teknologi atau apapun lah.
Betul. Jadi sebenarnya nomor satu yang paling utama adalah yang what I've been sharing tadi ya Pak, bahwa I think the most important thing adalah kayak we need to change the mindsets of people kayak gitu, bahwa it's possible, it is possible kayak gitu. Itu yang paling penting karena kalau udah patah semangat duluan di depan, siapapun yang mau nge-convince dengan uang berapapun atau dengan resource segimanapun, so they will still running on the place, right? Jadi makanya kenapa what we try to actually do adalah ya kita benar-benar nge-pushing ini nih semua brand founders yang kayak udah masuk ke Highfest untuk share their story kayak gitu. How they've been building the business, what's the ini dan segala macam, just to actually inspire the next, I don't know 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 brand founders di luar sana. Yang kedua of course the ability for these brand founders ini nih untuk kayak bisa punya beyond proof of concept that they can sell in outside Indonesia market. They can actually build step aja. Maksudnya nggak usah langsung tiba-tiba harus becoming a global brands. But we start small. Like we start from Southeast Asia, regional brands. Maybe we go to Australia, maybe we go into a bit of US, Europe a little bit dan segala macam. So we take things step by steps kayak gitu. But we wanna change that thinking bahwa udahlah Indonesia, you jual di Indonesia aja lah kayak gitu. Because we can do it. I know we can do it, Pak. Kayak gitu. Then the other ones that we want to do, ini kan sekarang the phase of kalau you follow the Highfest phase itu ya Pak ya. Ini we're joining as a partners. In the other word itu tuh lah kayak we're hand holding the brand founders, right? Jadi kayak kita ngobrol, kita kerja bareng dan segala macam, kita nurture them kayak gitu, untuk what's next dan segala macam. Yeah. But the next phase, which would be amazing if we can do that, adalah we just act as the enabler. Yeah. and they can do it themselves.
Wow.
We provide like facilities, we provide like technology, then you do it.
Iya,
And then that way,
keren.
gak harus kayak cuman 400 atau 500 brand yang maybe I can invest kayak gitu atau it can be like open for millions of brand founders di luar sana. Like that's the dream right now kayak gitu Pak. But of course
Bisa tuh.
bisa Pak. Kalau Bapak nanya saya bisa, saya adalah orang paling saya come from very optimism like
Yes.
kadang-kadang so tahu, cuman I think we can do it.
Tapi Mat, itu kalau kita hitung pengusaha mikro UMKM di Indonesia ada 50-60 juta.
Betul.
Tenaga kerja yang diberdayakan 125 juta. Kalau Anda ya don't think small lah. Iya kan?
Bisa, Pak.
Sekarang udah ada 35, tapi ini kolamnya nih ada 50-60 juta yang digosok dengan ambisi atau aspirasi yang lebih bagus.
And we just get again, right? We just getting started. Dan I think yang fakta di lapangan sekarang ya Pak, yang is actually a good news for everyone. Itu kan adalah kita harus ngasih signals back to the brand founders untuk kayak dia bisa bilang bahwa oh this is actually working. The signals back ini adalah people actually buying the products, right? Sekarang yang terjadi di lapangan adalah masyarakat Indonesia udah mulai sadar bahwa local products is actually good.
Yeah.
Kalau ke marketplaces di Indonesia setiap kali angka cantik ya 11-11, 12-12 dan segala macam itu ya. The top 5 atau top 10 best selling brands di those marketplaces di masing-masing kategori pasti ada 2 atau 3 local brands. Meaning bahwa people actually start to like the local brands, and this is a very strong signals, right? This is a very strong encouragement gitu Pak untuk brand founders untuk kayak keep going atau the next brand founders to actually, which happens in the beauty category as example sekarang. Sekarang hampir tiap 2 minggu tuh ada brand beauty baru muncul. Dan sekarang kalau go to the streets kayak di Kuningan gitu, banyak brand-brand lokal yang sekarang taking over the ads, not like global brand anymore.
Yeah,
kayak gitu. Everwhite something dan segala macam amazing brands, and that's local brands. Kayak gitu. So I can really, dengan optimis bilang bahwa we can do it. I think we can. Kayak gitu. But we will there's so much that we can do kalau kita sendiri, right? But if we can do it right, these brand founders also find their sharing their inspiring stories more and more people inspired, then customers also respond in a very good way, meaning kayak they actually buy the products and they like the products, then it's going to happen.
Anda ngelihat nggak sih tahun 2045 itu udah ada brand yang terkait dengan jasa, bukan barang.
Brand yang terkait dengan jasa itu misalnya kayak gimana? As example, Pak.
Sauna, spa. Itu jasa kan? Tukang cukur.
That's a tough question sih ya, Pak ya.
Anda kan biasa jualan barang-barang dari mitra yang bikin sesuatu kan yang bisa dikonsumsi.
Betul.
Ada bedak kayak, ada kapas kayak atau apa gitu.
Well,
tapi Anda, do you envision a future di mana ada brand dari Indonesia yang terkait dengan jasa? Kayak
massage from Bali.
KPMG.
Huh?
Atau Ernst & Young. Itu kan jasa kan? Pusatnya di Jember.
Well,
just throwing a curveball at you.
No, for sure, Bang.
Kan keren kan?
Betul. Sebenarnya kalau misalnya ini akan terdengar sangat show off ya. Jadi
sebetulnya kita udah punya Apple, brand seperti Apple, namanya Bali. Itu kan yang asalnya dari Indonesia dan cool factor-nya udah insane.
Udah, ya, benar.
Mau naik kereta di Inggris, di Nebraska, di Darwin, di mana atau apa, ngomong Bali, oh iya, keren.
Itu kan. Kalau misalnya kalau jasa, I don't know ya Pak, tapi kalau solution ya Pak ya, yang tadi misalnya kayak yang tadi saya bilang ya, if we can actually provide the technologies to actually enable this SMB, small medium business,
Yeah.
you keep in mind bahwa Indonesia ini salah satu negara dengan SMB paling banyak, right? Kayak gitu. And could be like, a global solutions.
Yeah.
Kayak gitu. I mean, Canva is like originally from Australia and then now it's becoming, I don't know, like 40 billion followers business or so, kayak gitu kan. And these like, solutions kayak, based on our real problems, these SME brands can also like, happen. Kayak gitu. Yeah.
Saya ngelihat kalau kita udah bisa mengedepankan jasa sebagai brand yang regional ataupun global, apalagi global, itu kalau menurut saya kulminasi dari keinginan kita tuh untuk menempatkan diri di benar-benar on the radar.
No, betul Pak.
Iya kan, karena itu mencerminkan kecerdasan, intelektualitas dan relevansi kita.
Ini nih juga sebenarnya salah satu area yang mungkin tadi part of innovations penting ya Pak. Maksudnya the way that
bisa fashion.
Betul kan, the innovation. I mean the way that I
bisa
see.
wayang.
Betul, the way that I see it ya Pak, to actually becoming a global solutions of something yang originally from here, then we cannot be a follower maybe. I mean it needs to be like starting something new kan. And maybe based on real problem in Indonesia and probably like relevan buat negara-negara yang lain, kayak gitu, right? So yeah, there's a possibilities karena one thing that I know, we have a lot of problems to solve in this market, right? Yeah, one problem at a time.
Ya, kalau menurut saya human capital itu yang harus Anda kedepankan atau kita kedepankan. Nih, kalau kita lihat banyak pengusaha-pengusaha yang sukses di teknologi, salah satunya dari marketplace, telah membuktikan diri sebagai either a serial entrepreneur atau multi-entrepreneurial. Ya kan? Tiba-tiba dia ngimpi mau ke Mars. Ya kan? Salah satunya dari marketplace background-nya. Do you see yourself as a serial entrepreneur or multi-entrepreneurial?
Oh my God. One thing yang
karena tempting loh.
Ya kan? Sangat tempting. I think
ini kita bisa edit nanti nih supaya investor nggak denger.
The idea of kenapa dulu the idea of Hivest sebenarnya udah ada dari 2015 loh ya Pak.
Yeah.
Itu my very first experience on the e-commerce di Indonesia kayak gitu yang 0 to 1. It was like my very first experience. And I was like, oh ternyata building something dari nol ini sesuatu yang benar-benar menyenangkan. I should do it. But I didn't have enough confidence at that time karena untuk jadi seorang founder banyak hal yang harus you need to prepare your mentality, your financial to your family karena ya obviously very first 1 year of Hivest itu tuh I pay myself UMR kayak gitu kan. And I was C-level in one of the e-commerce before kayak gitu. Dan a lot of things yang harus di prepare kayak gitu. When you actually do it, it has a lot of like challenges ya Pak ya.
Yeah.
Which I think like super fun dan everything kayak gitu. I think yes, very first 1 year like you sleep like 4 hours a day dan segala macam kayak gitu. But when you actually kayak udah mulai kelihatan timnya udah terbentuk dan segala macam, then like it's getting much better kayak gitu ya. Not like you can sleep 8 hours a day, tapi at least you can sleep like 5-6 hours a day kayak gitu, right? Then if you're asking me whether that I wanna like do this again, if I do this one with the right people, I would do it kayak gitu. Dan I think it gives couple of ideas lah. Karena sekarang ini kan like I sit on the holding group, I have 35 brands. Brand ini kan sebenarnya in a way is a startup juga Pak, is a business, right? Kayak gitu.
That's what I'm getting at actually. Yeah.
Jadi like you see kayak ini dan segala macam, but if you're asking me like what's the ideal end game here Pak, is that at some point, I don't know when, maybe 3 years from now, 4 years, 5 years from now, maybe some exits. I have the money, I invest like on all like these startups dan segala macam. I probably sit in Bali, on the beach, and
Anda punya first look loh.
Yeah.
dengan masing-masing dari 35 yang bakal ke 60, bakal ke 200, ke 1000.
Betul, Pak.
Dan nggak mungkin nggak tergiur. Ini orang cuma bisa 10x. Kalau sama gue sih gue bisa 100x nih. Iya kan?
Exactly, Pak.
Padahal gue udah ngomong sama dia 20 kali, tapi dia nggak mau denger. Ya udahlah, mendingan gue terjun aja ke situ.
It's addictive.
Iya.
Beneran. It's addictive ketika like you again tadi sih Pak, you have the right team, the right partners, dan the right ideas, right?
Yeah.
Kayak gitu. So yeah, let's see. I don't want to say it now karena takutnya kata-kata itu kan doa ya Pak ya. I want to have like more companies in the future. Cuman kalau sekarang I feels like kita nih belum masih day one lah buat HFS ini kayak gitu.
Mat, kita udah dengar kriteria apa yang Anda pakai untuk bekerja sama dengan mitra. Saya pengen tahu kriteria apa yang Anda gunakan untuk merekrut orang yang mengelilingi diri Anda supaya Anda bisa tidur lebih panjang atau nyaman.
Oh, I can talk for hours about this sih Pak. Jadi sebenarnya ketika saya ngelakuin recruitment atau hiring, especially for the leadership team ya Pak ya, background itu tuh atau experience is like number sekian sih kayak gitu.
Yeah.
Karena joining in a startups yang apalagi 2 tahun dengan growth rate yang kayak kita sekarang ya, it requires someone crazy. I know like this probably doesn't make sense, cuman ketika dulu pertama kali saya bikin HFS ya Pak ya, banyak VC itu yang nolak dan bilang bahwa karena at that time itu belum ada contoh di US atau di any market, right? HFS idea was there ketika belum ada contoh di luar sana. Jadi ketika we talk to the VCs back then, banyak VC itu yang bilang bahwa okay, do you have benchmark in US atau in China atau di India? No. Then they go straight to thinking about probably won't work karena ya mature market aja nggak ada. Then they suggest to actually kayak, with your background, C-level in e-commerce before dan segala macam, ngurusin marketing, you should just creating a proven business model like e-commerce enabler, marketing agency dan segala macam. But I always think ya Pak ya, it's actually easier to build crazy ambitious company, over ambitious company compared to company yang kayak mungkin ya udah ada kayak gitu dan segala macam. Kenapa Pak? Karena kayak gini, to be able to actually attract the craziest people in the market, you will need the craziest challenge, right? And biasanya when you actually got those crazy atau you hiring, you got that craziest people, they stick together.
Yeah.
Karena like they enjoy the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And they don't find some challenges like this kayak di luar sana. I have a 15 leadership team right now ya Pak ya, dan all of them I'm pretty sure they won't like I say it, but they are crazy, they're weird.
Yeah, crazy good lah.
Crazy good kayak gitu.
Atau good crazy.
Yeah, but they are obsessed with the problems, They don't give up. They take the ownership into the next level, Pak. Yeah. They don't come to me and then asking, Mat, ini gimana? They try to figure things out first. Kalau udah mentok segala macam, and then we discuss as a team kayak gitu. Because early stage startup is messy, Pak, right? There's a lot of proses manual yang ini kalau saya selalu kasih contoh ketika hiring itu adalah kalau you join other company kan you just ngikut path di hutan ya. Yeah. Cuman this is like no one is actually doing this before. Jadi this is like you pegang parang. Iya, you pegang parang dan you create the path kayak gitu dan you akan sering nyasar kayak gitu dan that's okay. That's why we encourage people di dalam entire company is okay to make mistake. I'm encouraging people to making mistakes karena nggak ada cara yang paling bagus untuk belajar selain you making mistakes kayak gitu dan you need that.
Sounds like my former boss.
Yeah.
He always said, go out there and make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make sure you don't make the same goddamn mistake twice.
Exactly. And most of them take the learnings from it, right? But then the next criteria is usually what I call the anti-fragilities.
Iya.
Anti-fragility. Iya benar.
Subtle tuh perbedaannya dengan resilience.
Benar Pak. Karena you just need to actually adapt to maximize like what's this messiness can turn out, right?
Betul.
Kayak gitu. Gak bisa just kayak keep going tapi like mentok terus kayak gitu, right? You need to be adapted. And then
Anti fragil.
iya betul.
Itu kalau menurut saya penting.
Penting
Saya kalau ngobrol sama banyak teman-teman atau ya yang siapapun lah, kita harus bisa membedakan antara resiliensi dengan anti fragilitas.
Betul, betul. Dan is a basic like apa ya, fundamentals understanding yang orang-orang harus maksudnya tim saya at least like harus ngerti perbedaannya. Jadi kayak gitu.
Tapi waktu Anda mewawancara orang, gimana untuk mendeteksi kegilaannya dia yang sepadan dengan apa yang Anda inginkan? Itu yang supaya orang dengar gitu loh.
Jadi biasanya tuh saya kalau nggak interview the leadership team ya, saya kayak suka kayak ngasih apa namanya like one example problem kayak gitu, terus bilangin aja ke dia bahwa pokoknya you lihat me sebagai VC kayak gitu, you are a founder, you pitch me like how to solve this problem aja kayak gitu, then all the crazy idea will come, right? Maksudnya dari hal yang paling masuk akal sampai hal yang paling tidak masuk akal, but at least they try and like they say it, right? Kayak gitu. I don't usually like asking mengenai cerita, mengenai experience, background dan segala macam karena I think like if they're smart people but they can learn kayak gitu. Except maybe like for technicalities role ya kayak gitu ya. Cuman if they're for my leadership team, as long as they're smart they can learn anything. Kayak gitu. So background less matters for me. Kayak gitu. Cuman whether that they have that passions, energies, and craziness, karena again ini nih is a 2 years old business yang didn't exist 2 years ago, but now like doing 9 figures USD revenue business kayak gitu Pak. So yeah, that's
Intinya kalau mereka mau join Anda tuh, mereka siap gagal.
Betul.
Iya kan?
Dan mereka siap frustasi sih.
Iya.
Kayak gitu. Karena you will know, right? Kayak gitu. You will just know. The very first 2-3 months you will know bahwa either like they will leave karena ini terlalu messy banget and I just don't get it. Kayak I just don't nggak bisa nyari jalan ke arah sana. Atau they are the one who actually might give me like a couple of like more weeks dan segala macam. I think I can get it done. Kayak gitu. I can create the way dan segala macam. Right? There's a very two different approach. Kayak gitu. Jadi makanya saya selalu bilang Pak, my goal adalah I just wanna hire a strong leadership team ya Pak ya. Biar saya bisa tidur siang Pak. Beneran. The longer saya bisa tidur siang, meaning bahwa everything runs smoothly already, right? So I don't have to hand holding di bawah lagi kayak gitu.
Saya tuh agak-agak kaget kalau saya baca mengenai Elon Musk gitu. Dia dari awal waktu tuh kalau ngobrol sama siapapun lah, publik atau calon investor atau pre-existing investors, dia selalu bilang nggak mengenai Tesla atau SpaceX gitu. Ini probabilitas gagalnya ini tinggi banget, ya kan? Tapi we're gonna get insane, gitu kan?
And have fun. That's the most important fun, Pak. Betul. Hal yang sama yang saya selalu bilang, Pak. Yang saya selalu bilang ke teman-teman tim, look, however like this turns out, whether that we will be becoming unicorn atau public listings and stuff like that, the most important thing adalah at least like find some area tuh yang memang you're actually having fun. Karena doing what we do is very exhausted ya Pak ya. It's just capek banget kayak gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya you cannot find something yang benar-benar you are passionate about dan feeling in your energy, then you'll becoming a machine. And itu akan sangat susah untuk survive. Kayak gitu sih.
Mat, ini pertanyaan terakhir. Kita udah ada brand-brand yang keren banget lah, yang udah dikenal di dunia. Gojek, Tokopedia, Traveloka. Tahun 2045 tuh bakal ada berapa brand sih dari Indonesia? Ngelamun aja lah ya, ngalur ngidul aja.
Saya sih kalau berharap kalau ditanya kayak gitu 2045 we will like.
Nggak, kalau kerjanya kayak Anda tiap hari, terus ada 20 orang kayak Anda gitu yang kerjanya kayak Anda tiap hari.
No, exactly Pak. 2045 sih saya berharap like we'll actually stop counting. It's just too many.
I like that.
Dan we should again Pak, coba kayak all I ask ya Pak ya, you and of course like you've been thinking about this, coba cari alasan kenapa we cannot produce a global brands, gak ada, cannot. I mean like if we have the expertise dan segala macam, and sekarang karena ya thank God like 10 years ago e-commerce exists, and sekarang udah lebih banyak talents e-commerce yang udah mulai graduate dan segala macam. And it's actually getting closer and closer kayak gitu. Allbirds, as example, in US, yang listed in the US, is actually not US company, it's a New Zealand companies, right? Then why we cannot create that? Jadi I think at some point, you know, I mean, 2045 still 13 years.
No. 23 years.
23 years, yes. So, even better, you know. I think we can like, you know, aiming untuk kayak ada global brand dari Ambon, dari Rote, dari Papua dan segala macam dong.
Indah banget.
Iya dong Pak, karena there is like, you know, amazing brands coming dari Bali, right Pak? So there is this
Saya pengen dari timur,
iya dong.
barat, tengah, semuanya tuh.
Betul Pak, karena makanya kalau Bapak nanya ya, kayak saya kan masih sering bolak-balik Ambon ya, pulang kayak gitu. At some point kayak, you know, saya benar-benar pengen bikin kayak semacam entrepreneurs academy di sana, karena terlalu sayang kayak gitu. People will always like, you know, overlook potential entrepreneurs di non kota besar di Indonesia. Padahal dia itu tuh adalah dengan all the limitations that they have ya Pak,
masih bisa survive.
The anti-fragility tadi Pak, anti-fragile tadi itu yang dia punya, right? Cuman they just don't know how. This is like, you know, just kenapa we just need to actually guide them a little bit. Ya itu sih.
Ada pesan-pesan akhir?
Maybe like buat brand founders ya. I think again saya udah ngobrol dengan like 1000 brand founders Pak. The biggest like, you know, thing is that they just don't feel confidence mengenai brandnya mereka, mengenai dirinya mereka, how seberapa like, you know, gede this brand bisa gede dan segala macam. My ultimate like, you know, pesan adalah like be optimistic about that. Then you don't have to do it alone. That's the most important one. This is like, you know, why exactly the reasons why we exist. Kayak gitu. And I'm pretty sure you as well advising a lot of startups, entrepreneurs and segala macam. This is our way to actually not just pay it forward, but how we can actually benefiting each others then make it grow to the next level. That's like the ultimate goal for everyone. Kayak gitu. Dan what we're saying is that kalian nggak perlu ngelakuin ini sendiri. Your brand, this is like, you know, why we exist, but you just need to have stronger, you know, ambitious and confidence about it. And the rest, you know, will be there with you kayak gitu. Itu aja sih. Jadi mudah-mudahan lebih banyak brand yang kayak ketika kita ajak ngobrol like, yes, gue mau dong 10M sebulan atau ke Malaysia, Singapura, and less of like, kita sih sekarang 100 juta udah happy sih ya, like that, right? So we want that, we want to see that change in dynamics, and hopefully we can also trigger some of it juga lah, kayak gitu.
Light up the fire.
Betul. We need more optimistic people here. Pak.
Amin. Wow. Okay, Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure for me.
Teman-teman, itulah Ahmad Al-Katiri dari Hypefast. Terima kasih. Inilah Endgame.